view of the sheep's brain here. So this is a longitudinal section cut right through the middle of the sheep's brain. The first thing that you'll notice is that the brain here is completely enclosed by bone. And of course the function of the bone is to protect the rather squashy brain from being damaged by knocks. There are three main regions of the brain, which are the cerebrum, which is here, the cerebellum here, and the brainstem here. And those were the areas that I pointed out to you in the model of the human brain. The other thing that you'll notice here is that there are grey structures and white structures. The grey structures tend to be on the outside of the brain, whereas the white structures tend to be in the middle of the brain, and here in the middle of the cerebellum. The grey matter structures consist of thousands of millions of nerve cells, and the white matter structures consist of nerve fibres from these nerve cells in the grey matter, and these nerve fibres are covered with a fatty insulating sheath called myelin, and it's the myelin which gives these areas their white appearance. So these white matter structures, as they're called, contain hundreds and thousands of nerve fibres which are each individually wrapped by myelin. Now I'll point out some features of the brain, starting with the brainstem here. Here's the brainstem here, which borders on the cerebrum at this end, and down here merges with the spinal cord. And you'll notice that the brainstem mainly consists, not entirely, but mainly consists of white matter, indicating that it contains hundreds and thousands of nerve fibres which are all myelinated. Some of these nerve fibres are travelling down from the brain towards the spinal cord, sending messages from the brain down to the spinal cord, for example, to instruct muscles to move. Other nerve fibres which pass through the brainstem are carrying messages from the spinal cord and from sensory receptors in the skin, and conveying this information up to the cerebral hemispheres, where the information is processed. The brainstem is important too because it contains important grey matter structures. You can't really see them grossly, they're quite small structures, but they are of great importance because they control things like respiration and heart rate. Here is the cerebellum, and you'll notice that it consists of grey matter with white matter in the middle, and the white matter has this feathery like appearance. The cerebellum is mainly concerned with coordinating movements and is concerned with balance. Here's the cerebrum, and different parts of the cerebrum have different functions. For instance, here at the back, the posterior end of the cerebrum, is the region where information from the eyes is processed. And in other regions close to the back of the brain, this visual information is interpreted. In the depths of the cerebral hemispheres here is a cavity. You can see the cavity here, which goes deep into here. That's the lateral ventricle, which is part of a system of cavities which passes through from the cerebral hemispheres through the midbrain, down through the brainstem, and down through into the spinal cord. This little bit of red here that I pulled out is actually the choroid plexus, which is the structure which is responsible for making the cerebrospinal fluid which fills these cavities. So that's the choroid plexus, that red structure there. Just here, right in the depth of the brain, is a structure called the thalamus, which is very important because the thalamus is the part of the brain which receives all the sensory information from the body. So all the information coming from the body, from the spinal cord, up through the brainstem is first of all processed here, and then that information is then sent up into the cerebral hemispheres. Just here you can see the pituitary gland, which is a single gland which lies right in the midline of the brain. There is the gland. It's also closed within bone, and it's connected to the hypothalamus here. So there's the thalamus here, and beneath it the hypothalamus. And you can just make out here a little band of white matter, one there and one there. And those are myelinated fibers which are going from the thalamus down towards the hypothalamus and towards the pituitary. That demonstrates the main features of the mammalian brain.